Okay, we're here with the two candidates for Florida House District 42. We have a Republican incumbent, Mike Rosa, and Democratic challenger, Chad Carnell. Thank you both for coming today.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Mr. Carnell, you have not been to see us before, so there are a couple of questions that I need to get out of the way with you that we routinely ask candidates. I went through these, we went through these a couple of years ago with Mr. LaRosa. First question is, have you been arrested before?
No.
Okay. And the second question is, have you ever declared bankruptcy?
No.
Okay, good. All right, we'll get to the substantive questions then. Start with Mr. LaRosa. What do you consider your main accomplishments from this past term?
From this past term, there's a lot of things that that we did, but specifically, I stayed close to what I said I was going to do in the short time I had to campaign in 2012, which was stay close to the business industries, reduce the barrier to entry for small businesses, and probably first and foremost was I started to create awareness for a disease called ALD and introduced a bill in 2014 that would require Florida to test for ALD in the newborn screening process when a child is born.
Mm-hmm. Let's deal with those in turn. First of all, what were some of the barriers to small business that you reduced?
Sure. Well, in 2013, something that was brought to my attention, which being from the real estate industry, I know a lot of folks in the mortgage business, and of course, with the mortgage industry changing so much, like most of the real estate related industries, we saw that if you had a mortgage broker's license in another state and it was to become suspended or inactive involuntarily, you automatically would have your license here in the state of Florida become inactive and suspended. Well, we of course know that we have a lot of residents that move into our state, and of course we want to encourage small businesses to open up and continue to practice if they're currently here practicing. And the bill basically said that Florida was going to make the rules on whether a license was going to be inactive or not, or suspended or not. And what we were finding is that you may have had a license in a state like Idaho or North Carolina or some other state outside of the state of Florida, and whatever happened there automatically suspended your license. And a lot of the cases were because they just didn't renew them because, of course, they're no longer there and they're no longer doing business. So that was a simple fix that we were able to make, and was happy to pass that, and of course have the governor sign off and make that become law.
Mm-hmm. And then ALD, could you just give us a few more details about what that is? Sure.
So ALD stands for adrenoleucoria dystrophy. And I'm hoping you don't ask me to spell it for you, but ALD is similar to ALS for an older person. It's probably the best way to explain it. And what it does is that it actually shuts down a child's body and its functions through its nervous system. And what we've come to find is that it's prevalent in young boys from 6 to 10 years old. And if a child is tested and the results are positive when they're a year old or less, there are some possibilities to either put the disease in remission or at least treat the disease to allow the child to live somewhat of a normal life, or even possibly put the disease in remission, like I mentioned. So the only time to do that is when the child is born. If a child of 5, 6 years old, when the disease becomes predominant, is found to have the disease, there's not much that can be done. What we come to find is between 6 and 10 years old is when the disease starts to take effect. And at that point, in many cases, it's way too late. So we currently test for 22 other items when a child is born, and I'd like to see ALD become the 23rd.
Mm-hmm. And there was a bill associated with that?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
There was both a memorial and a bill. The memorial passed the House floor. The bill was not taken up. Mm-hmm. But certainly there was some awareness that was created, and we'll come back and continue to work on it for next year.
Would it involve any appropriations?
It would, because of course now the state would be required to test, mm-hmm. and of course that is where a lot of questions have come up on it. We believe the tests are anywhere from $3 to $4 to as much as $10 or $12. Mm-hmm. So we're trying to figure out what that cost would be to the state, and that's what I've been doing most of this summer when it comes to ALD, is to understand from the state level what our response would be, and what exactly the state resources are needed to require the testing.
Right, okay. Mr. Carnell, have you run for office before?
I did previously for Osceola County Commissioner, District 5, 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
That was my first time running for public office.
Okay. And why are you in this race?
My whole reason for running was I am a nonprofit CFO. We deal with federal, state, and local funds. And through my years of experience in this industry, it has just aggravates me the way we spend the money, the way the money is allocated, the way we can manage our money better. So the only way to really make those changes is to get in the legislature, which does the appropriations for the budget.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my main reason for running.
So could you give us an example of what you would hope to do that would affect federal, state, or local funding?
Sure, several good examples. Just the other day, I was talking to the candidate running for CFO for the Democratic ticket, and I told him, I said, I want to talk to you about certain expenditure guidelines that the state of Florida has, because they're very antiquated, and we spend more money trying to monitor certain expenditures that the state of Florida says are unallowable expense, that it costs us more than what it would just to let those expenses go through, such as standard things like sending flowers to a deceased employee, things of that nature. I mean, the Joe public may not even know that those type of things are there, but we spend thousands and thousands of dollars trying to make sure that something so simple like that doesn't hit taxpayer funds when the expense is nominal, and let it go through. And it's something that's almost standard and expected in any business. Mm-hmm. So those are just some of the things I want to do.
Mm. That sounds so essentially that comes down to a kind of a deregulation for nonprofits or for business in general? Or? Just
the use of the taxpayer money, because it's more than just nonprofits that obviously contract with the government,
right.
But they're all bound by these same rules.
Right. That almost sounds like that sounds like something we would hear more often from a Republican candidate than a Democratic candidate.
For me, this doesn't have anything to do with a Republican or a Democrat. This has to do with wise management of your money. Mm-hmm. And that's what I'm trained to do. I'm Chief Financial Officer. I have a bachelor's degree in accounting, master's in organizational management. It's just wise, efficient use of money.
I did want to follow up on that issue of partisanship, though. I noticed from your background that you had been registered in the past as a Republican. How long have you been registered as a Democrat? Well,
when I first started to get to the age that I could vote, I was a Democrat. My whole family is Democrat. Something my dad always used to tell me is, if you're a working man, you vote Democrat. If you're a rich man, you vote for Republican. Then 20 years later, I had a little bit of went on a find myself thing, and I became a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and then I changed to become a Republican. Got caught up on that because most members of the church are Republican, but the Republican Party and I have a lot of disagreements, if you will. And so I decided to go back to my roots.
Now, one of the issues about Democrat and Republican is that there is a strong Republican majority, as you know, in both the House and the Senate. So, how would the people in your district be better served by getting rid of a member of the majority party, and putting in someone like you, or a member of the minority party?
I don't think that this is coming down to parties at all. I think Mike and I just have two different skill sets, and it's just going to be up to the people to decide which set they want in at office at that time.
Okay. Mr. Rosa, tell me about what your skill set is.
Sure. Well, I'm a small business owner. I've been in small business, since I graduated from UCF. I'm in the real estate business. A lot of what we do in real estate is negotiating, is understanding how to get the best thing we may need possible out of a transaction or out of a deal. A lot of times that's how our legislative process works, as we're trying to work on a bill and trying to massage and mold it into what our goals are. So negotiating is a skill set I use in both ends, and both my private business and, of course, as a public service. Remember, I've also, of course, been in business, been faced some challenging decisions. Of course, as a legislator, you're forced to make some very challenging decisions.
What would you consider among the challenging decisions that you faced as a legislator this past term?
Well, I think almost every bill I vote on is going to affect somebody some way or another. So, of course, I take every one of those decisions as a challenge, because I want to make sure I'm doing the right thing for my district. Sometimes the more popular thing to do is not always the easiest thing to do, or vice versa. Sometimes the easy thing to do is way too easy. So I want to make sure, whatever I'm doing, however I'm representing, I'm making sure that the folks in my district are being best benefited from it. So I take all of the decisions in the legislative process very serious.
What would be your priorities? You mentioned we're continuing to work on the ALD bill, but what other priorities, maybe a couple more priorities, would you have in mind if you're reelected?
Sure. Lowering the bar for small businesses. Small businesses, they challenge the business world, and of course they create competition. The last thing I want to do is to make sure, or to not allow a small business to be able to enter into the business community because barriers to entry may be too high, whether it be regulations or whether it be tax structures. And of course, I want folks to come to the state of Florida to do business and not be discouraged like they may be in other states. Florida is a very favorable business climate, but we need to continue to work to make Florida the top state. And even when we get to be number one, whenever that may be, we're going to need to continue to fight to be there.
And Mr. Carnell, you already talked a little bit about what you were interested in, but I wonder if you would, if you had anything to add to that, if you're elected, what you'll be working on.
Well, as I have gone around talking to people and everything, seems like the main topic of concern is the quantity and quality of jobs. Now, it's very hard for any legislator to create jobs, but I've tried to put a lot of thought into this. How could we perhaps generate almost immediate jobs? And one thing that I was interested in my current position, we have a lot of residential centers, and they consume a lot of electricity. And they're on property, and I thought, I wonder if solar energy would be a feasible alternative to convert the facilities over to. And as I did some research, and I have to do more research, but the preliminary research that I have done, I found that there are a lot of states that have leasing programs where you can lease these solar panels. It's very cost effective. It's a minimum monthly cost to people, makes it affordable for those who want to do that to do so. And I started looking into that, but I found that Florida doesn't have that leasing permission in our various utilities. And I'm like, I can't believe this, because we are known as the Sunshine State. Now, if we could implement leasing of solar panel energy, the panels and so forth, make it affordable for people to enter into it, I think that would create practically instant jobs. Obviously, you have to get the legislation through, and there'll be regulations of how to get the licensing and so forth. But after that, I went out on the U.S. Department of Labor statistics. It employ general contractors, pipe fitters, electricians. We have so many citizens in District 42 that have these skills. It would create hopefully an instant boom. It may not be an instant boom, but it would create some energy to go to that. And one thing that on a personal note, I was here in 2004 when the 3 hurricanes hit us. We were lucky. We only went 14 days without power, but a lot of other areas in Florida went longer. And I just thought, wouldn't it be interesting is if most households had their own solar power generation? Not everyone's going to lose a roof. Not everyone's going to lose their solar power generation. And, neighbors could help neighbors, and we'd have a backup system until the lines. Now, that's on a personal note because, I thought about my grandmother, who now is 85, but at that time, it was hard on her going without air conditioning and so forth like that. It wasn't easy for me because I like my comfort. So that's a personal note. That's a side note on that for that.
Mr. LaRosa, can you think of any examples from your time in Tallahassee where you diverged from the party in a vote that you made or a position you took?
Sure. I think last session, 2014, at the end of or near the end of the session, the Expressway Authority bill that I introduced the amendments to was, of course, run by a Republican and pushed by Senate leadership on the Senate side. It was not easy to go against leaders in the party and other members of my party that felt that the bill was fine the way it was or heading in the right direction. That was certainly tough, but it was necessary.
And remind us what those amendments to the authority bill did.
Sure. So what was happening in the bill was that the Orange County Expressway Authority was becoming the Central Florida Expressway Authority. And in that, it was going to absorb the Osceola County Expressway Authority. And that date would have been immediately. There was, at one point, it was 2016, and by the time the bill hit the floor, it was going to become immediately. And I didn't believe that was necessary and right for the residents of Osceola counties, especially the fact that they had taxpayer dollars already going to an expressway that was under construction and being built. So we extended the time that the Expressway Authority, the Osceola Expressway Authority, would be in existence in the bill to 2018. We also allowed that any future expansions of the Central Florida Expressway Authority that were to happen in Osceola County and would be paid for, or Osceola County government would have equity in it, that the revenue from that section of the toll road, that revenue would be able to stay in Osceola County for future expansion.
Mm-hmm. And you went against some of the people who were running this bill on the Senate side, who were Senate Republicans, correct? Mm-hmm. Right. Mr. Carnell, would you have supported the amendments that Mr. LaRosa sponsored for the Expressway Authority bill?
I'm not acquainted with the amendments, so I don't know what detail is in there. Mm-hmm. So I can't really comment whether I would or wouldn't support it. Mm-hmm. One thing I can tell you about expressways is I am what they call a super commuter, so better highways is always important.
Mm-hmm. You have to convince voters in the district not only that you have a different skill set, but that your skill set is better for them for this position than the incumbents. So why is that? Why are they better off with you?
I work in contracting with federal, state, and local government funding all the time. I think that gives me a little bit of an edge on understanding the effects on those that contract with the government. And, accountants typically aren't very political. They're more, brass tacks, numbers people. They want to see the bottom line. And I think that's important because, quite frankly, we could just manage our money better. And we need that in office. So many representatives now Mike doesn't fall into this category, but so many of our representatives come from a legal background that everything is legally. And they're not, they don't come with a business background. They don't come with an accounting background. They don't come from the trades. So, our government is not functioning like it used to way back when because you don't have a balance. We need a balance in there. And, You know, because the first thing that happens even at my company when someone wants something, I'm like, well, let's do the cost benefit analysis of this. What are you trying to accomplish? And make the resources go as far as they can, squeeze a nickel. And I'm very good at it. Very, very good at it. Our clients never want for the needs that they have. They may not get all the luxury or all the wants, but they're taken care of. And I pride myself on that. And I think that I will bring that to the state because there's always more need than there is money. It just never ends. So I have a really good skill set in squeezing that nickel to get everything out of it.
And Mr. Rosa, why is the district better off keeping you?
Excellent. Well, you know, I believe that in the short 2 years that I've been there, I've proven that I'm going to go and get to work and bring back some results for the district. Whether it was local government or whether it was in my constituent base, you know, I've been there at every beck and call to make sure that I'm there representing them and helping and working with them, especially when it comes to local government. Osceola County has some exciting things happening on the north side. Polk County with Lake Wales and Frostproof have lots of attributes that they can utilize. And I've made sure that in my time there, I'm there fighting for all the hardworking taxpayers of my district, whether it's jobs or education, making sure that their best interest is represented. So I think I've proven that in the 2 years that I've been in Tallahassee. I've been effective passing the bills that I have and managing the budget process, which of course we know is so important in our state.
Okay. You said the bills. Was there a bill in addition to the one that dealt with the mortgage brokers?
In regards to?
You said you were effective passing the bills, plural, and you had mentioned the bill that you worked on that dealt with mortgage brokers and not having their licenses automatically suspended in Florida. If they are suspended in other states, but I was wondering if there were other bills.
There's been a lot of other bills, and I won't go into each and every one of them this second, but in 2013, I passed a bill that actually went into effect this past summer, which was a risk-based inspection bill for restaurants. And of course, making sure that the government runs efficiently is an important part of my stance. And you know, what was brought to my attention was that restaurants in our state are visited automatically 2 times per year. And I said I was going to make government more efficient. So what I did was sit down with the Secretary of the Department of Business and Professional Regulation and ask him what he needed. And he says, well, of course, I always need more money, but I know, Mike, that's a harder thing to come by, but how can we work within the department? And I asked him what his grades were at many of his restaurants, and he says a lot of my restaurants are A's. And it's unfortunate that the ones that cost us most are the restaurants that have bad grades, and we have to visit them sometimes 3 or 4 times per year. So I said, well, would it make sense to give some decision-making power to the inspector, that if that restaurant continuously gets an A, do we need to visit them twice per year automatically? Why don't we just visit them once per year? And then pay more attention with those same inspectors' time to now go visit the restaurants that are not getting the A grades or maybe getting the C grades or the D grades. And of course, that's going to help protect consumers. And it's going to be good for business because, of course, we have a lot of visitors in our state. We want to make sure when they come here, they're going to be safe and they're going to be protected. And I know that other business industry leaders feel the same way. That's a small example of another bill that I passed. I worked with the Department of Ag this past year on a licensing bill that did a multitude of things for the department. We of course I introduced an impact fee bill in 2013 that passed on the House floor. Unfortunately, it was not signed into law, but it was a bill that was effective, and I thought brought a lot of attention to what some of the fees that are being charged to small businesses. So. We of course ran an HOA bill in 2013 that started as a PCB, but I took the reins of it and guided it through and passed that on the House floor, which was a bill that a lot of HOA homeowners were living under that just needed some reform that hadn't happened in many years, and I was happy to do that for them in 2013. And since then, we've heard a lot more about HOAs, and I'm sure there's going to be some more legislation somewhere coming down the pipe because. It's an old statute that just hasn't been reformed to the way we develop and communities are created today.
Right. Okay. Mr. Carnell, would you vote to increase Florida's minimum wage?
You know, I've done some studying on that recently. We do have a new economy here, and this isn't just Florida, it's the United States. It seems really the jobs that are plentiful are the ones that are low wage and or minimum wage. I've talked to a lot of my small business owners that are friends, and you know, their first thoughts when you talk about raising a minimum wage is, you know, oh my gosh, it'll bust my business. However, we do seem to have two different types of business structures. You have your small business, and then you have your conglomerates, the very large ones. So I think that if we're going to raise the minimum wage, which I'm not opposed to per se, but we need to do this smartly, because you don't want to put small business out. They're the majority of the employers. So we may have to create a two-tier level there. Another option, because some of the research that I've done, another option is perhaps to encourage more employee-owned businesses or profit sharing. I was telling a group just recently, I used to work for Enterprise Rent-A-Car, and they had a profit sharing plan. And let me tell you, Enterprise Rent-A-Car is a multi-billion-dollar company. They're privately owned, or at least they were the last time I checked. But they, their wages were satisfactory with scale, depending on the geographic area. But they also had that profit sharing, and we would work like the devil to make sure that that company was running as efficiently as possible, because we got a nice big bonus check. Mm-hmm. So minimum wage may not be the only way to address this inequality, but we definitely, it's a topic we need to talk about.
Okay. Mr. La Rosa, would you vote to raise the minimum wage?
No, I would not.
Okay. Care to elaborate?
Sure, I will briefly. Let's not waste our time focusing on minimums. Let's focus our time on better opportunities, and looking up, not looking down.
I'm going to start with you on this one. Would you vote to, or would you vote in favor of expanding casino gambling in Florida?
No, I would not.
Okay. Mr. Carnell?
No, I wouldn't either. And the reason is, yes, it would generate some jobs, but the research that I've seen doesn't pan out that it would be that much of a boon. It just robs Peter to pay Paul, you know, and I'm always worried about give them an inch, they take a mile. So I always worry about that.
Mr. Carnell, should Florida accept federal dollars under the Affordable Care Act to expand health insurance coverage?
You know, if you'd asked me that 5 years ago, I'd have said no. Mm-hmm. Now, I feel just the opposite. And it came from personal experience. I had a period of unemployment, well, where I didn't have benefits. Mm-hmm. I was a contractor. That was a scary time not to have health insurance. And I've always been employed in a job since I was out of high school where I had health insurance. And a lot of people think that people that don't have health insurance are not working because they don't want to, or they want something free, that type of thing. But that's not always true. I was working my hind end off, but didn't have the health insurance coverage, and it was expensive to get it on my own. So this is the thing I don't understand. Everything that I've read, our country spends more than other Western nations on their health insurance, yet all of them have universal health care. We don't. I don't even know why we need to raise taxes to do anything, borrow money to have universal health care when other Western nations do it, and they don't spend near as much money as we do. And I had foreign exchange students in my house, and I have been to their countries, and I've seen how they live. Those people don't live in fear of a car accident. They don't live in fear of falling off some motorized vehicle when they're working on their farms, or anything like that. They just, and it's amazing what that does for uplifting your citizenry. And like I said, I know from personal experience, it was a scary time. And so I want that. I want that for our people.
Mr. LaRosa, how about expanding health insurance coverage with federal funds?
Not with federal funds. I do not believe so. I don't believe it was the right decision. Of course, I did not support it in the last two sessions whenever it was brought up. I passed a bill this year, which was a pharmacy tech bill, and maybe it wasn't, of course, a big movement on Medicaid insurance, but it's ultimately trying to reduce the cost that one comes with their insurance, and that was going to be strictly for the cost of medications. Allow more pharmacies to come into our state, expand and get pharmaceuticals quicker to its patients. I believe everyone should be able to receive some type of health care. At least the option should be there for them. But expanding Medicaid or accepting federal dollars, I do not believe was the right decision, the right move.
So how do you get coverage to? I mean, the Medicaid expansion would have hit 800,000. Would have provided for health care coverage for 800,000 Floridians. How do you give that many Floridians the opportunity that you mentioned without taking advantage of that?
I think looking at the private health insurance, how can we make it competitive to where private health insurance costs are reduced, and to where that cost is reduced to a fact to where more folks can afford it, and more companies can afford to offer those incentives to its employees. Right now, with the expansion of Medicaid, it's going to a different direction. Less companies are offering health care coverage because they're trying to honestly work around the law, because the law has become so burdensome to them.
Mr. LaRosa, can you think of any circumstances under which you would support a tax increase in the legislature?
That I would support a tax increase?
Mm-hmm.
No, not off the top of my head.
How about you, Mr. Carnell?
Well, that's a kiss of death to anybody running for office, is a vote for a tax increase. First, I think we have to utilize all efficiencies before that would even be considered. Nobody wants their money to leave their wallet like that. No, it doesn't matter if you're an independent Democrat or Republican. Everybody wants to keep their hard-earned dollar, and we're having to work harder today than ever. So, but I'm sure that if there was some type of an emergency or something like that, I'm sure those things would be on the table. But in general times, we need to make sure we have efficiencies first. And I just know we don't have them as good as we could, just with the contracting. And I want to eliminate those things first. That's the reason I was talking to a friend of mine. He was a civil engineer, unemployed for over 4 years, and he was on unemployment, food stamps, WIC, those type of things. And those systems didn't work perfectly during the recession, but they worked. They kept us in just a recession, not a depression. So, I'm not saying that we shouldn't adjust them to make them better, but they worked. But even him relating to me his stories, he was getting, if I remember correctly, over $1,000 a month in food stamps, plus he's getting WIC. Well, I'm not opposed to him getting WIC. I'm not opposed to him getting food stamps. But I don't spend, when I had, the boys here, I didn't spend $1,000 a month on food. That right there is an inefficiency. And this is probably something that grew out of some bills decades ago to help, people. And I'm not saying that people in need should not be helped, but we have a duplication of services there. That cost us money. That means somebody else didn't get a benefit because, you're doubling, somebody's being able to double dip. And that's what I want to eliminate. I don't want to eliminate any services to the poor and needy. I want to make them go further.
Mr. LaRosa, can you think of any area of state or the state budget where you would advocate the state spend more money?
Well, I think over the past few years we've been spending more money on education. We talk a lot about job growth, right, and attracting more jobs to our state. One of the key elements of that is having an educated workforce. So I will continue to support additional spending, at record limits if that's what it ends up being for education. I know that's a big component when I talk to business owners and industry insiders. When a state is selected or an area is selected to open up a headquarters or a regional office, of course they're always looking at that job force. And we've got a great job force here in Florida, so we just need to continue to improve that, and of course that starts in education in our classrooms.
Okay, Mr. Carnell, any place in the budget you advocate more spending?
I would say education. I was here. I actually was one of the first employees of the Florida Lottery years ago. That's aging me a little bit, but if I recall, when the lottery was being proposed and pushed for the state of Florida, it was supposed to augment the budget at that time. But what happened was it replaced. So the legislature at that time took this money, the lottery generated this money, well, we can lower their budget and spend that elsewhere because it's general revenue. That was supposed to be an add-on. So we need to get that base back for sure, And then I would ask the school districts to really examine their budgets and where do they have mission creep? Because I am a firm believer in education. If I didn't have the opportunity to go to college and get the degrees that I have, I would be more than likely in those minimum wage jobs. And it was because of education that allowed me to break that barrier and to move forward in my life. And so I want that opportunity for everyone that wants to avail themselves of it. But, we got to make sure our teachers are paid correctly. I owe everything to my teachers, and I stay in touch with some of them on a ongoing basis, even my first grade teacher. So, it's kind of exciting, but the thing is, education is so critical, but we need to make sure the money is going to the teachers and maybe not all the administration.
Mr. Carnell, do you support Florida's stand your ground law?
I don't know the details about the law. I purposely didn't watch a lot of the televised case that was going on pertaining to that, but I am a firm believer in the right to bear arms, and this is coming from someone who's actually been gunshot, and that has not changed my view on it at all. Those rights were given to us for a very specific purpose, and it wasn't to commit crime, and it wasn't to commit rape, murder, or steal, and so forth. It was to protect our nation. So I always want to have the ability to protect our nation. And, that means to protect my person as well. But like I said, I don't know the details of that law, but nothing should ever be used as an excuse to go out and, rape, murder, or steal, or any of those kind of things, commit crime.
Okay, Mr. LaRosa, any changes in stand your ground?
No, I don't believe there should be any changes, and I'm certainly a supporter of it. I think this past legislative session in 2014, we heard a pretty fair argument from the Criminal Justice Subcommittee, a few hours long, as far as if any changes should be made, and I think we had an overwhelming response to that. The answer is no.
Okay. So last question, and I'll start with Mr. LaRosa. Tell me what kind of a job you think Governor Scott has done since his election.
Sure. I think Governor Scott has done a great job for our state as its executive, as its leader. We don't always want politicians, being in the political front of things. And Governor Scott isn't a politician. Certainly a businessman who's come into this, and maybe he doesn't have all the attributes and the smooth talking skills that many may have. But he's led our state in a direction that we would want when we're looking for a leader. We've got companies that are coming into Florida that never would have considered Florida when they're selecting and looking at places to open up headquarters or regional locations. Governor Scott has turned that around. Governor Scott has of course created more jobs. Our unemployment has been dropping almost in half since when he took office. Our state isn't in debt. In fact, we've got a surplus. Those are all positive signs, but at the time when things are looking good, we've got to make sure that things continue to be good for our state. It's my belief that the next 4 to 5 years are going to be a vital time for our state, for ourselves, for the next generation that are going to be leading us. And I think this governor's race is going to be a one for the ages to make sure we've got someone that's leading us in the right direction. And I think Governor Scott has done that over the past 4 years, and I'm very confident that he'll continue to do that over the next 4 years. And I think he's doing a fine job. And I believe that the voters of our state should elect him to be our governor for the next 4 more years.
Okay, and Mr. Carnell.
I don't have too much of an opinion about Governor Scott, other than when he first went into office, our civil servants, and I'm not talking about the lawmakers, the people that pass the laws. I'm talking about our teachers and firemen and police officers, all our civil servants, our local secretaries and clerks behind the counter where we go to get our tags renewed, all these type of people. I guess everybody thinks that these civil servants are running off with the Treasury, and that there was a real attack on these people as far as their retirement. But they give up working in free enterprise because of the benefits. That kind of balances it out. I just had this question the other day, and I told this person, I said, there is extensive research done on the worth of a job in a geographic area. And states, or governments in particular, it doesn't matter the unit, but they always pay typically lower than what you can make in free enterprise. But the offset is the benefit package. But when you add them together, should be nearly equal. That's the trade-off. None of us, because I've worked for the state of Florida before, and let me tell you, I wasn't making Donald Trump wages. But I had that benefit of, I knew I was going to have some type of retirement when I got out. I might have retired at 65 making $35,000 a year. Whereas in free enterprise, the same job would be making $50,000 or $60,000 plus their 401ks and so forth. Even at that time, we didn't even get to participate in a 401k. But now it was like everybody went on attack, like they were taking off the Treasury, and I don't understand that. That's not. Now, I understand sometimes lawmakers, a lot of people get very upset with members of Congress because they got special bennies and all that kind of thing. But I'm not talking about those people. I'm talking about your neighbors. The average workers here, the civil servants. And let me tell you, you may get upset that they have some benefits like these pension plans, but when you call 911 and they respond, that's critical and it's important. And I've had to use their services before in the past, and I'm grateful for them.
So do you hold Governor Scott responsible for that?
He was the cheerleader and ringleader in promoting that, yes.
Well, I think we're just about out of time for today. I appreciate the two of you coming in. Good luck in your campaigns.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.